Alright, here's a little bit of video about what's going on with the car. I started to do it and realized the camera wasn't recording, so I was just talking to nothing there for a while. Well, what I'm waiting on is the O-ring for the filler neck for the tank. I could put the tank in, I guess, because this is going to be too hard to put in with the neck in the tank, so I have a feeling I'll have to put the tank in and then put the neck in. There's an O-ring that fits in that groove there, big fat O-ring. And then this pushes into there, and that's your fuel filler neck. And I got a new sending unit. I replaced the wiring in the trunk. It's coming along pretty darn good. The tank is spotless on the inside. I put a new sending unit. Well, I just showed you the new sending unit. So you can kind of see in there the float, the sender, where it comes in. So what I did was I hooked the leads up to the fuel sender, and with this light I'm able to probe in there and touch that float. So down all the way the gauge was showing empty. I held it all the way to the top. It showed full, and holding it about even with the seam it was showing a half a tank. So I think the gauge is going to be pretty darn accurate. That is pretty much the fuel tank. I cleaned all the rust up the best I could, wire brushed it, sanded it really good, and then painted it. And did the same with the floor pan underneath where the tank goes. This floor pan was really nice, so I just painted it up just to help protect it. I fixed the wiring for the fuel sending unit. That's the hose that I have running through a hole in the trunk too. That's the fuel line. The metal line comes down right there. I don't know if that shows up or not. And then that's what will go to the sending unit from there. But I just put a longer hose up into the trunk so I could run it on a gas can. These are the bolts that hold the tank straps. That's the other bolt that they had washer and nuts on holding the hose up, and there's a couple back here. So that'll hold the tank up with the straps I made. And you can kind of see the hose I've been running it off of. And what I did was I just ran it through one of the rust holes in the trunk that I got to fix. That's where there's a body mount right there. So I'll fix that with some heavy steel and then weld sheet metal in on the top. I'll repair all that correctly in this rust hole. And I've shown all the rust throughs in this car in previous videos. So if you're interested in the condition of the overall body, just look at my past videos. I did get another battery box, so I ended up with two. I ordered the radiator and the finger guard and the battery tray from this salvage yard in Oklahoma that just deals with GM cars, and they sent me the wrong battery tray, 68 to 72 tray, and I called them up and talked to them. That tray is available brand new for like 20 bucks all day long. So I sent them a picture of basically what I needed and never heard another word from them for about a little over 2 weeks. And in the meantime, I got a battery tray, blasted it clean and painted it, and they sent me this tray. Now these are some pretty decent people. They made good, and this is who sent it. It's East West Auto Parts in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And if you need parts, they're worth contacting. They're actually really nice people. They'll take care of you. I have to say I have no complaints. That's what they charge me for this battery tray here, so I might send this one out and have it plated like the original one's supposed to be, but may not. We'll see. So anyway, yeah, got the battery hooked up. You can see the trunk lights on. The battery tray is in. The battery from the 59 Chevy is in here. The correct battery, I went to Napa and to get the correct battery. It's actually a couple inches wider, and I wasn't sure it would fit in the battery tray. And it's the same height, So I thought, well, it's essentially the same battery as what was in, this is the battery out of the 59 Chevy. So I put the battery from the Chevy in here and it seems to be fine. I did make this top bracket new and one of these bolts. I had the top bracket, but it was starting to get weak here and one of these bolts was missing. So I made a new bolt for this side and this battery hold down I made. And I put new repair ends on the cables. This car didn't have battery cables when I got it. Somebody cut them off right here and at the engine. And these were just old cables I had laying around. And they did the job just to get the car running, make sure it all runs. I may try and find the correct cables for the car and put them back on. Because when I go to car cruises, I think these things are tacky when you see these on an old car. So I think I'm going to eventually replace those. Maybe not. We'll see. I might leave the tackiness on it. But that's kind of about where I'm at here. And another thing too was I got to address the fact that this has 10.5 1 to compression ratio, so I'm going to have to run premium gas in it. Like at my 59 Chevy's 348 is 10.5 to 1. And I have to run premium in that to keep from pre-ignition. And what happens if you run regular gas, you get what they call pre-ignition or spark knock. And that's because the higher the octane of the gas, the higher the flash point of the gas, the higher temperature it ignites at. And as you compress your fuel and air mixture, it generates heat. And the engine's already got heat in it, and your spark plugs are hot. And if you're compressing it and it ignites before the spark plug ignites it, that's called pre-ignition or detonation or spark knock. And that's not good for the engine. If you've ever taken an engine apart and all the top piston rings are broken or there's little pits in the pistons, that's from pre-ignition or running too low octane gas in the car or over advanced ignition timing. You don't want your fuel air mix to explode too soon. You'll cause damage to the engine. So with the higher compression, I'll have to run a higher octane in it. And I guess that's just what you have to do. I guess, you know, when you look back, regular gas then was 89 octane, and your premium mid-grades were 91, 92, and your premiums were 98. This car is designed to run on a 93 octane gas according to the owner's manual. So, yeah, I'm going to have to put premium in it. And I do the 59 Chevy. The 59's got a single 4-barrel and it's 250 horse. And it's really more than what those cars were designed, the suspension and everything was designed to handle. And this is 283 horse, and it's only a 2-barrel. I can't imagine one of these cars with a tri-power. You'd have to really do some work on the suspension and whatnot to get it to handle to make that tri-power of any value. Otherwise, it's just get up and go straight down the road, you know, because these cars don't handle corners and curves and things like the newer cars. When you see a sign in the road that says for a curve that says 45, in these old cars you're doing 45 when you hit that curve. In a new car, modern car, yeah, you might be able to do 55 and 60 on that curve, but in these old cars you do 45, whatever that sign says you want to be doing. Those signs with those speeds were designated back when these cars were on the road. And so yeah, and also Monday's supposed to be a warm day. I might get it out if it's not raining all day and pressure wash the engine. They're talking 100% chance of rain on Monday, so I may not. But if it isn't, I'll get it out and pressure wash the engine. And one other thing I had somebody asking me about the choke, and a lot of these younger guys aren't familiar with carburetors. Everything's been fuel injected now for 25, 30 years, so carburetors are really a thing of the past. Not a lot of people know how to work on them anymore, and they're really super simple. And to start these cars, you set the choke. This is the choke valve here, and the fast idle cam when you hear the engine racing. It's because when you push the accelerator to the floor, you can see that cam come up. That is on the highest step of that. And then there's a bimetal spring in here that heats with the exhaust going through a passage in the intake. heats that spring, and eventually that choke slowly comes off, and there's a piston here, so when you start the engine, vacuum is applied to that and it pulls the choke open a little bit so it doesn't load up. And you can see that's on the high step of the cam, and when you touch the accelerator, oops, my fingers are on it, that drops down a little bit, and then you're on a lower step. So when you first start it, they really race. You hit the gas a little bit, that drops the RPM down, and then as the engine warms up and the choke opens up, that'll stay on the fast idle speed until you touch the accelerator. And again, my fingers are on the linkage, but then that drops down and you're at curb idle. You can see it's not, that screw's no longer touching the cam. This is the idle speed there. This linkage here is for the transmission. It downshifts the transmission when you put it to the floor. On these old cars, there's no electronic, engine control unit to tell the transmission when to shift and what to do. So on these older cars, 3 things that tell this transmission when to shift, and one is the throttle position, and that tells you the throttle position. The other is the load on the engine, which is through your vacuum that goes down to a vacuum modulator on the transmission. So this is saying how much throttle is applied to the engine. This is telling the transmission how much load is on the engine. And then you have what's called a governor in the tail shaft housing that tells the transmission how fast the drive shaft or the car is going down the road. So you need road speed, load on the engine through your vacuum, and throttle position tells the transmission when to shift. And getting back to the choke though, I think it just set a little too rich. This is the choke. You loosen these 3 screws up and you can turn this black cap. And that center mark there is called index. That's a factory spec. It's set too lean right now, and I might set it 1 more lean. It just seems like it stays on too long, although the day my dad was down and I had it out and running, it was only 15 degrees out that day, so it might have just taken longer for the choke to open up. But typically with these old cars, and back when they were new even, when they were new especially, because I only drive them in the summertime and I never really start them in the winter, so I never horse with this. This would probably be fine where it's set right now for summer weather. In fact, you might even have to turn a little richer because the choke might not even turn on a 90-degree day with it set the way it is. So if I set it 1 more lean, it'll just come off a little sooner. In the cold weather, usually you'd set these a little leaner, and in the warmer weather, you'd set them a little richer. So they're easier to start in the warm weather, but so the choke doesn't stay on as long in the colder weather. So that's kind of a little bit on the choke on the carburetor. I might set that 1 more notch lean. So that's kind of an update of what I've been doing on the Catalina. I am going to start on this body work probably after the holidays. And I want to get the gas tank in. If I have time, I might work on it. We got relatives coming down tomorrow. We had relatives down last weekend. I've got Christmas parties to deal with and places to go and things to do. So the car's just been kind of on the back burner for the past 3 or 4 days. That's why I haven't really done much on it. But that O-ring should be in the mail today or tomorrow. And I should be able to get this tank in at least by Monday or Tuesday, and then I'll start on the body work. The car will be mechanically done with the exception of the tires. I wouldn't hesitate to take this car on a cross-country road trip when I'm done after it gets new tires. Right now the tires they're okay for going up and down the driveway, but I don't think I'd want to take it out on the road. I think that I'd be changing them. They'd be popping. They're really, really in bad shape. So I'm surprised they hold air, and they do hold air. I haven't had to add air to them once. I check them once a week, and they're always right up to, I have them set at 32 pounds. So yeah, it's coming along good. Kind of just an update on the Catalina and what's going on with it. People have been asking, and my friend Tom's going to come over and we'll do a video on how I acquired the car when I saw it. And when I first saw of it when he brought me over photocopies of black and white pictures of the car sitting in the barn in Gladwin. And I was like, I need another car like I need a hole in my head. I'm really not interested. And then gave the guy that owned it my phone number, and he called me, talked to me. He had it towed from Gladwin to New Haven. Paid almost $800 to have it towed from Gladwin to New Haven. So I thought, well, I can drive to New Haven and look at it. And I went and looked at it and videoed it, and it was him and hawing. The engine was stuck, and I was like, I didn't really want to get into a major project, you know. And so, you know, he told me what he wanted for the car, and I told him, you know, that was, you know, more than what I was prepared to pay for the car. And so the next day I was looking at the video, and Tom, the guy told me about it, was over, and we're looking at the video, and I was like, you know, this really is actually a pretty solid car, considering it's a 57-year-old car. So, yeah, I ended up calling the guy back the next day and making him an offer, and bought the car. And I'm glad I did. It turned out to be a really sweet car. It's in really good shape, and it, you know, again, it's, you know, for the people that live in the South or in the West or in California or in parts of the world where cars don't rust out, my Australian relatives, yeah, it's a solid car for a Michigan car. You know, we're in the heart of the Rust Belt here, so yeah, it's in good shape. And like I say, all this will clean up. This is where the oil, I don't know if I told you, but that's where the oil from the spark plug hole shot out, wiped right off clean, a little WD-40 on a paper towel. So Monday, if it's nice and not pouring rain and it's warm like they're predicting, I'll clean up the engine compartment, power wash, gunk and power wash the engine and the fender walls and clean all that up. This is the stuff that I like to use. Like the foamy stuff, it doesn't leave a nasty kerosene odor, and this stuff works pretty good. And you don't want the engine hot. I just run the engine just to get it maybe to 100 degrees. You don't want this stuff to boil away. You want it to work. So in a cold engine, it just doesn't work as well. So I'll run the engine for you know, long enough to back it out and get it where I need it in the driveway. I'll probably put enough temperature in it to really clean it up good, and I'll spray everything down with that and then hit it all with the pressure washer really good. And I'll avoid the generator and the voltage regulator and horn relay and the distributor, carburetor, things like that I'll avoid. And especially you want to avoid getting gunk in your electrical components in your alternator or generator, because I think that stuff will take the varnish that they put on the windings as insulation off, and you'll ruin your alternator or your generator. So, but yeah, we'll get this cleaned up, and car's coming along good. And I think next week is you get the tank in, and it'll be, like I say, it'll be totally road ready. So I'll start on the body work, the cosmetic stuff, and I gotta contact this. It's a guy here locally in Michigan that somebody told me about that has the seat material, the correct material. He's a Pontiac guy. Was the guy I dealt with in Wisconsin for some parts, and he asked me if there was anything else I needed, and I said some seat material, and he says, well, I can give you a number of a guy that probably has it, and he's right there in your home state of Michigan. So yeah, hopefully we can get the seat material and start working on reupholstering the seat. And so it's coming along. Got my tank, like I say, I think I showed my tank straps already that I made, because the tank straps are not available. So I clamped one of the old ones together the best I could, and been cut with tin snips, and just really, somebody really hacked the tank out of it. They didn't undo the bolts, they just cut the straps and cut them up good. So I was able to fit all the pieces together to get the correct length, and made a couple new ones. So, and I'm undecided on painting it up after I clean it up. Might paint like the rusty parts, like the intake manifold. I think I'll leave the valve covers, the inner fenders, and this looks pretty good. You know, the camera doesn't show as good in the camera, That's pretty much all black with some surface rust and some dirt. This is like a car wax or something on it here, or rubbing compound or something to that effect. I think you can see wax. This car's been, somebody took care of it when they used it. You can see like wax right here. So somebody kept this car waxed and took care of it. I think most of the original paint will buff up pretty nice. But that's just a little bit of what's going on the car. I know this video is kind of long, and just wanted to kind of do an update, and when Tom comes over we'll do a video on how I acquired the car. So appreciate you watching my videos. Thank you very much, and everybody have a very Merry Christmas, and it may be next week before I post another video on the car due to all the family get-togethers and parties and whatnot that are coming up, and they're kind of taking me away from my hobby here, which is working on old machinery. Just anything old I like to work on. It doesn't have to be a car. It can be any old mechanical thing. So again, thank you for watching my videos, and everybody have a very Merry Christmas.